different tags called as an set property and JSP colon get property. Okay, I need to have name, and this name should be equal to the object name. Okay, so if I'm giving f1 here, it should be the same the object name. Okay, then it should have the properties, and this property is the attribute name which we have given there. Okay, so what is the attribute name here we are given? Like if you see in the beans.java, this is get value. Okay, so this should be the attribute name. Okay, so generally this attribute name will be value actually. Okay, so value, so which we have given like a value there. So this is, I told you that this can be any name actually from here to here. So this name of property should be given there. Okay, so either you are getting or setting will be replaced over here when we are calling with the uh, property name here. Okay, so if it is a set property, then we have to set the property with certain value. That is the reason we do have a attribute called as an value, so we can provide some value. Okay, so we'll see this with the help of an example. So similarly we do have get property, same again, name, the on which the object need to be called upon, then it will have a property. Okay, but here we don't have a value. Why? Because when we give a property, this property actually need to return to us. Okay, so when we execute this tag, then it actually implicitly it tried to call upon f1 dot. Okay, it replaces this with a get property, so it will replace this with a get, and it replaces this with a value. Okay, so and it tried to fetch the value out of it. Okay, so it tried to fetch the uh, values upon it. So prior to that we have to set this, so implicitly it will call something like this f1 dot, f1 is an object actually, f1 dot will get it. So we have to set the property like this, set, so this is value. As this is set value, implicitly it will be replaced with a set value, and as we are giving some value here like 5, then the value of 5 will be passed to this f1. So as f1 is an object of the class which we have called upon here, so f1 is an object of beans. Okay, so hence we can call something like this. Now you should get a doubt that, sir, if I have multiple attributes, then how we can access? For example, if I am creating an if you are creating a employee class, for example, okay, then we can have employee id. Okay, like emp id. Okay, then I can have a string employee name. Though then I need to write getter and setter methods for these also, for emp name and emp id. How we'll write this? Like public end get emp id. Okay, so this actually need to return an employee id, so I just simple, for example, I am returning some 788 as an id. Okay, but here we need to write a logic to fetch the data from database. We'll see in this class only what is a database is, how to get the values from the database and so on. Okay, so now uh, similarly we need to have a setter method. So initially actually we have to go with the set method only, public. Okay, so it can be void for set method like set emp id. Okay, so I need to recall this name called as an emp id such that I can get it. Okay, so it belongs to integer, like if I take it as x, I try to assign emp id equal to x. Okay, So now here two methods are there now, getter and setter method. So how to call those things in our beans are is very similar. Like we have to make use of a set property and get property. Okay. So now, sir, actually here the V should be capital because there our V is capital. Okay. And similarly, if I want to get the other attributes, then what I can do is the same thing, JSP colon set property. I'm operating on the name of the object called as an F1. Okay. So what have I given? EMP ID. Okay, so it replaces that with a set EMP ID. Implicitly, it will call F1 dot set EMP ID. Okay, so you can give a value for this. So value like some 777. So it tried with 777. Okay, or here what I can do in the beans dot Java, I can replace this instead of 788 EMP ID. Okay, so whatever we are setting, it will return this. So now set property. Similarly, we do have ASP colon get property name is F1. Okay, property. So same the property name is EMPID. So it will actually try to fetch this. Okay. So here it's raising an exception for not compiling this because I created in an in a default package. We have to create a separate package and we have to write import statements here. So it is trying to import from beans.beans. So actually there should be a source package called as bean. Just now I deleted this. So I'll just try to remove it. Just run the file. Value in the bean of the bean. Cannot find any information on property value in the bean of type beans. So there is a no name collision of this. Like beans is already a class. For it is just checking for a beans for inbuilt class. So meanwhile we have to refactor all these things. Like I have to replace this. I have to change this class name. Okay, so I have to refactor this. So for changing the class names, you can have a refactor here. Okay. Here we do have rename. Okay. So let us rename this to fact and click on refactor. So wherever beans are there, it now replaces with the fact now. So the class name is now changed to fact. Okay. Now I have to go with the JSP file beans.jsp. Now beans no more beans exist now. That is the reason it's getting in a fact. Actually it is not able to find value still because value is there here in the fact.java. I have given it like a value. Let us try to write. So both are small letters now. Okay, so that same thing I have to use in the beans.jsp. The F1 yes small letter and this V also has a small letter. Then run the file. Still some exceptions. Yeah, previous exceptions that F1 is null. Okay, so this I will resolve. I will check this. Okay, what the exception is. So it is trying to go with an uh, new fact of this. Okay, which don't have a constructor actually default constructor. So that's the reason it's raising an exception. So I will check this. Okay, so um, this ends the concepts of JSP action tags. Okay, so which includes till beans. So there are some more concepts which we'll see later. So now we do have JDBC. So how JDBC and what is JDBC is, we'll see in detail now. Okay. So I'll try to add one page which is stand for JDBC. So in the previous class I told you what is JDBC is. This is for Java database connectivity. Okay. So what exactly this will help? This will help us to act like a bridge between a database and the application. Okay. So this application should has to belong in a Java. Okay. So it might be an console application, or it might be an GUI application, or it can be a web application. Okay. So any kind of application you want to make a bridge between database to fetch the data from database or to store the data into database, we make use of JDBC. So there are different types of architectures for this. We call it as an JDBC architectures. Okay, or in general we can also call it as an JDBC drivers. Okay, so what these drivers will do, they actually try to connect the Java program with the database. Okay, so here uh, it come up with JDBC drivers. There are 4 different types of drivers. Okay, so we'll start that with type 1. Okay, just make a note of this, that what is JDBCs and how this will act a bridge. So here we do have JDBC, which try to communicate with database now. Okay, the very first one is JDBC ODBC driver, which we call it as a type 1 driver. Okay, so here actually this was a very first uh, way of connecting to the database, and it was a olden in the olden days we used to connect with an open database connectivity. There was an APIs. So first try to understand the principle, like before connecting to, because here we do have Java application. Okay, so Java bytecode is try to understand with the JDBC, and these calls of Java used to translate into another program which is an ODBC API. Okay, suppose you want to store some data. I hope you know the databases. Okay, so I think you are learning Oracle database. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so we can try to connect with Oracle, or we can also go with different databases. Can you know how many kind of databases are there? How many different types of databases are there? Types of databases. Different types of databases.
Oracle database, MySQL database, NoSQL database.
Okay, basically you should understand that the databases, uh, nowadays there is a trend of NoSQL database. Okay, means we are not going to write any SQL queries to fetch or store the data. So it is in a demand now. Okay, so we do have relational databases, and what are you learning? A relational database is
Yes,
Oracle is
sir.
a relational database.
Yes, sir.
Apart
Yes, sir.
from that, how many different types are there? Okay. In the previous class also I asked you some question. At the end of this class, I will ask you again. Okay. So try to remember that the way you have to learn is a bit different now. That you have to learn somewhat in detail about what are these things are, what is relational, non-relational database, and so on. Okay. So here the database is capable of storing the data persistent, and it do have certain algorithms where the data retrieval and data storing can be with a minimal of cost in terms of time. Okay. So the maximum operations what you're going to perform is like a CRUD operations on a database. Okay. Create, read, update, and delete. These are the basic transactions we do on a database. Okay. Apart from this, database to have different objects. Okay. So this database can have PLSQL. Okay. And this database is capable of writing of functions. This is also capable of writing of triggers. Okay, and many things can be done in a database. Okay. So what we are going to do is now, if you want to select some data, for example, so this I am talking about the very first one, JDBC ODBC driver, the first type of driver. So all the JDBC uh, calls means you want to store some data. For example, you want to insert. So insert query. I hope you are familiar with this. Like you want to insert the data, then we need to call a API which is in a Java, and that API call will actually get translated into ODBC. ODBC are in a native programming language like C or C++ or so on. Okay, and every call need to be get translated into this particular uh, API call. Okay, so there is an insert query, and that insert query actually need to be uh, translated